and welcome to a passenger seat podcast. A podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all usually recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. But Peggy is still away for restoration at the time of recording, and so this weekend I've had the absolute pleasure of enjoying this beautiful Singer Chamois, which you will have seen on the channel before. I did a little test drive of it a few years ago when my dad first got it, and also took it to the Kimbolton Country Fair once as well. So it's been on the channel before, pretty familiar, and you guys know how much I love driving this car. It's very different to Peggy, and it was fascinating to do a long distance trip in it. But today is not just about that, it's about the reason that we went away in the Singer Chamois this weekend, and that was to attend the Singer National Weekend up in Cheshire this year. So I collected the Singer off of Dad on Wednesday of last week. Went and picked it up, got reminded of some of the things I need to watch out for. Obviously, with these cars that were pretty well known for overheating in period, it's watching the temperature and things like that. But as long as Dad's had this car, when I did this trip, we've never had any issues with that. It's something that I think was much worse with the Mark 1s, but something that kind of got ironed out a little bit later. But I've had a few little bits and pieces just to refresh myself on driving a rear-engined little imp rather than a Morris Minor, as I have even been doing whilst Peggy's been away. I then did a little warm-up journey on the Thursday and took it to work, and got a lot of very nice compliments from people at work who spotted her in the car park. I have a usual spot that I kind of park in, so when there's something different in that spot, people tend to notice and have a little chat with me about it, so that was quite nice. Friday afternoon, it was time to head up to Singer National Weekend. Singer National Weekend does have stuff on the Friday, but I had some stuff that I had to do at work on the Friday morning, and then I went home. The car was all ready and loaded, so we hopped in that and headed across the A14 and up the M6. Reasonably pleasant journey. These seats are incredibly comfortable, but the car does feel quite small. Even though it's very spacious, you can feel a little bit cramped in here, especially when the back is all full of all of your luggage. So we did make a few little stops, both to give the engine chance to have a bit of a break from just kind of slogging away, and also to stretch our legs a little bit. We got up to Cheshire, I think around 6:30. We'd set off probably around 2:30, so not a bad trip considering that we'd had a few decent breaks as well. This year's National Weekend was primarily being hosted at the De Vere Cranage Hall estate, and we went there first once we arrived, because my sister, who had travelled up the day before, and my parents, who had travelled up earlier in the day, were there. So we caught up with them. Dad was very pleased to see that I'd got the car there in one piece with no issues, and caught up with a few friends that we hadn't really seen since, in some cases, 2 years ago when we'd last been at a National Weekend, or perhaps even longer ago than that. The club had just had their kind of AGM, and there was a bit of time between that and them having their evening meal at the hotel. So it was nice to have a chat with people, have a look around some of the cars that were on display outside already, and generally just getting a feel for where a lot of the weekend's activities were being hosted. We also helped with the moving of some of the display boards from one room at the kind of conference side of the hotel into another. So they'd had the AGM in one room with all of the display boards, and then we kind of moved it across to the other, because we know the organisers, Nigel and Emma, pretty well, and you'll actually see Nigel featuring in an interview on this channel a little bit later on in the series. Once all of that was sorted and they were getting ready to go in for their evening meal, myself, Jamie, my sister and her partner all headed out, because we weren't staying at the hotel. We were actually staying on a little canal boat which was kind of 2 villages over, and so we went for a little drive in convoy, both of us in little Hillman coupes of some variety. My sister has a lovely little Hillman Californian, and we parked ourselves up at a little pub, had some dinner, and then got to the boat where we were staying, got ourselves all unpacked and ready for the weekend to kick off the following day. Now, it tends to be that the first 2 days, the Friday and the Saturday, have kind of shorter things on that allow for some driving in between. So we got to Cranage Hall pretty early on in the morning. I think it was about 9 o'clock-ish, and we attended the morning briefing, which gave you a little extra detail to what was in the route map in terms of anything to look out for that's particularly interesting on the route, and also if there's been any kind of updates to it since the printing of the booklet. But there fortunately wasn't, other than one pretty impressive pothole that you had to keep an eye out for, and then we headed off. We waited to become some of the last people so that I could get some fantastic footage of people all driving out of the hotel, and also some nice photos as well. And then we headed kind of towards the back of the pack to the Shire Horse Centre. We didn't stay there very long. We just kind of turned around and went on to the next place, because we were more interested in the next place and also wanted to try and get some photos and things of people arriving there. And the next place was Blakemere Village, which had a few nice little antiques places to walk around and enjoy, and other bits and bobs, as well as the display of cars. I managed to find 2 Morris Minor models that I quite liked in one of the shops for a reasonable price. So that was quite nice, and it was great to see kind of a good display of the cars out at Blakemere. And there was also the opportunity for Dad to help out one of the members who's recently been trying to put together a Singer Junior much like his own, so that they could have a little ride in his Singer Junior to hear how that sounds compared to theirs, and see if there's any kind of tweaking and things that they need to do. But overall, the weather was reasonably good, holding off for the most part, and a nice kind of run out. I really enjoyed the aspects of these weekends that involves kind of going out for group drives and getting to places, having a group park up and then kind of moving on. And it's something that I've tried to incorporate a little bit into some of the things that I've started to organise, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that a lot of these cars are there to be driven, and it's far more impactful for a lot of people to see them out on the roads driving than just kind of sat in a field. So that's something that I always really enjoy. After Blakemere, we headed back to the boat to get changed for the gala dinner, and the gala dinners are always kind of quite impressive celebratory events that look at kind of bringing everyone together, meeting new people, and having kind of quite a special evening to celebrate the continuing effort to keep the Singer mark going. And Nigel and Emma absolutely outdid themselves with the design of the room. They had 3 vehicles pushed in to park up at one end of the hall for display purposes. They had big drop-down screens that were scrolling throughout the meal with historic photos, some of which that I've never seen, and I do need to contact Nigel about getting a copy of a few of them because they were particularly interesting. And also big display boards, green and white themed colouring to go with the Singer Owners Club colours, and an impressive display of trophies as well between the two cars. It did look absolutely fantastic and really made a brilliant impression when you came into the room, and made for a really nice place to have some great atmosphere and chats in that evening. With the tables being that of 8, myself, Jamie, my sister, her partner, my mum, my dad make up almost the whole table. So we do feel a little bit guilty about the people that end up sat with us. But we were joined by Peter Seeley, who seemed to have a nice time with us, and it was great to get to know them a little bit better. The gala dinner happens after a few little kind of welcome speeches, and then there is a guest speaker, and this time it was James Rupert, who had been invited to become a guest speaker, but having attended the Friday and the Saturday of events, had ended up joining the club and also coming along on the Sunday as well. And he's written some fascinating books that I'm really looking forward to reading a little bit more of, as well as giving a really interesting and quite humorous little guest speech. And following that, we then moved on to the giving of the Saturday night trophies. I don't know how many other clubs do this, but the Singer Owners Club has kind of 2 lots of trophies. One's at the Saturday night on the gala dinner go out to people rather than cars, and the ones on the Sunday at the big national day go out to kind of cars, which I think is quite nice because it recognises the people's involvement in keeping the cars going, as well as very fine examples of cars. And my dad has recently taken over the role of sorting all of the trophies out, making sure that they're all collected in at the end of the year to be able to be handed back out again, because there is quite a lot of very lovely historic trophies that need to be kept track of. And so it was his first time doing the gala meal and making sure that all of the trophies were handed out and people received them and had a reason given for why they had received trophies. And there is a trophy that my sister has had her eye on for a while, because the Singer Junior in our family, my sister is it's her car in the same way that Nelly is my car. And there is a trophy for the most active junior, and she firmly believes that Dad uses the junior an awful lot and tries to get it kind of out and about as much as possible, but particularly in the last year he had used it to go to the NEC and a few other bits and bobs that he wouldn't usually use the car for, and she was there helping him hand out trophies, had no idea, and they won that trophy, so that was really special. They had been nominated by someone in the club for it, and she was absolutely thrilled, especially as that was the car that Dad had brought along this weekend. Things at the gala dinner started to wrap up kind of about 11 o'clock-ish, and it was then time to try and get the cars back out of the room. I could have very well helped, but I was asked instead to make sure that all of these sorts of things were captured, and so I stood there filming while lots of other people went through the challenge of trying to manoeuvre these vehicles back out of the room. Once they were all out, we were able to head home and get some sleep before a very busy Sunday. Sunday is kind of the main display your cars, like polish and shine sort of day, show and shine sort of day. And we had actually been invited to bring along any Morris Minor young members and also any Women Drivers Social Club people who would like to come along as well to the day and display in the non-singer category of the proceedings. So I got there pretty early. We'd had a lovely breakfast with Dad because it was obviously Father's Day, and then we went outside to help marshal cars into the appropriate spots on the field, because it's all categorised to help with things like judging and getting to know the cars a little bit better. Once all of the young members who were coming had arrived, and also all of the WDSC members had arrived, I gave them kind of a very brief history lesson on what the differences between the cars, how kind of routes came in and how that impacted some of the cars. Trying to my best to try and explain the difference between 9 Sports, Le Mans, and also like the 1.5 litres, and why those were kind of separate. And then they had the very important job of trying to judge the Masters class. It was a fantastic idea to get them more involved. It meant that nobody in the club was making the decisions about who was getting what trophies in the Masters class, and gave kind of quite a fresh perspective to it. So I think that was quite fun. And they had a lot of fun with it too. They were coming back and asking some questions and then going back off, exploring the cars, getting really into it, exploring the dials or the suspension and all of these sorts of things to get them to know them a little bit better. And then they popped their forms into the counting of all of the votes. Once that was done, Nigel, who had been the one to kind of invite them along, put his money where his mouth is and invited them to drive his Singer 9. His Singer 9 is quite unusual in the fact that it, in the 80s, had an engine put in it that was a A-series to allow the car to go on long continental journeys, but without the risk of causing lots of damage to the relatively rare Singer engine. And so that engine is still in it, but he still has the original engine, should anybody kind of want to pop that back in at some point. But that meant that the young members who were quite familiar with the A-series, but also the WDSC owners who, again, had perhaps driven an A-series at some point, but it is a relatively easy engine to get used to, all had the opportunity to experience a little bit of open-top motoring as they drove around the site, taking it in turns in the driver's seat. And I think they absolutely loved it, and hugely grateful to Nigel for letting them all have a go, because it's that sort of thing, getting behind the wheel, trying something out, that is going to get people more interested in some of these pre-war cars. That was then complemented by a ride in Liz Hayer's 1.5 litre, where she drove and really showed them what those cars could do with their original engines. And I think a lot of them were absolutely hooked, really enjoyed the experience, and said that it was a fantastic day. Meanwhile, whilst all of this was going on, I was also trying to grab a couple of interviews with some people who were very early members of the club, or kind of had been very active members of the club for a very long time, record some of their memories and experiences, which kept me very busy throughout the day as well. By the end of it, we were getting pretty tired, but it was not yet over, because we still had the awards procession for the cars. And whilst we had been doing interviews, testing out the cars and all of these sorts of things, the awards team had gone around and put on the little plaques on the cars to let them know that they'd won. And Yayan, who had come along in his 1.5 Morris Minors, had won the non-singer category. And my sister's Emma had 1931 Junior had won not only its class but come third in the Masters class, which was very lovely. But it meant that she needed to drive the car because Dad was going to be busy handing out the trophies to people as they came past. And she'd had a little bit of a practice that morning around the site, her first time driving the car. And it was then a case of in the driving seat with me in the back and with the daughter of the gentleman that had restored the car originally in the passenger seat, driving it around the site to collect one prize, joining the queue again to collect the second prize that she had won. And she did fantastically. You would not believe that it was her first time driving the car on her own, and she did a brilliant job, and it was really very impressive. So well done to her, and well done to the car for essentially winning 3 prizes over the weekend. Very well deserved. It is a fantastic car. And then it was time to kind of wrap things up. People started to head home, and we were sat there kind of under a shady set of trees behind where we'd parked this and my sister's Hillman Californian. And we just sat there chatting, enjoying the last of the sun, until we decided that it was probably about time that we also headed off for the day. And that wrapped up what was probably one of the very best Singer National weekends that I've been to in a while. I don't know if it was because I was in a Singer, so I had a lot of fun, kind of feeling a bit part of it, but also just brilliantly organised, a great location. And it was also really nice for me to be able to share something that's so close to my heart with so many of the young members in WDSC, and have them be as passionate and enjoying what I was enjoying for so many years once again. We came home on the Tuesday after a lovely day up at Chester Zoo on the Monday with my sister, and now I'm about to go and hand the car back. It's been a fantastic time, and the car performed brilliantly on its kind of 3.5-hour journeys and throughout the weekend, and we had a brilliant time whilst we were away. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing about our little Singer Owners Club adventure, and perhaps you are a bit more interested in hearing about some of their cars. So if so, watch this space, because we have got some really lovely interviews coming up with some of their owners. And in the meantime, I will be back next week with more adventures, hopefully. And we've got a very busy June, so watch this space, and Peggy will hopefully be back very soon. So in the meantime, drive safely and happy motoring.